5 months ago, Inji was sitting in the kitchen with her 20-year-old daughter Annika and 18-year-old son Bjorn. They talked about Inji's husband, Harry. Annika angrily asked, "Mom, why are you complaining about Dad? You're acting like a spoiled teenager. Daddy spoils you. You have everything you could want, but it's not enough for you. For heaven's sake, what do you want?" Inji thought, she's right, but it doesn't matter. She replied, "I want variety. He is too compliant and never stands up for himself. I want it to have more spine. I want him to be angry sometimes." Bjorn interrupted, "Really? I already got it from my dad. This is not an experience I would like to repeat." He shuddered as he remembered. Inji continued, "I have a plan. I'm going to tease, push, and bully your father until he loses his patience and gets angry with me. Then, when he calms down, I will make up with him and tell him how much I love him. But I need your help with this." Annika looked at her mother in disbelief. "I don't like this idea. If you love Dad, you won't put him in this situation. Explain what you want from us." Bjorn chimed in, "No, no, no. I won't participate in this. I've gone too far with my dad once before, and I still regret it. We were both hurt. Then a year passed before he trusted me again. I'm warning you, Mom, this won't end well. And the problem with Dad is that he doesn't warn before he reaches his limit. He just breaks down. Please, Mom, don't do this." Inji did not listen and outlined her plan. When she finished explaining, she looked at Annika and asked, "What do you think? I won't push Harry to his breaking point, but I need him to stand up for me." Annika replied wearily, "I still don't like it. Like Bjorn, I'm afraid it will destroy us." She fell silent, shaking her head. "Mom, I will help you, but until a certain point. Just know that if everything goes as Bjorn predicted, I won't be supporting you. I will be supporting Dad." "Fair warning," Inji agreed. "And you, Bjorn?" "Absolutely not. Can you hear me? No way. And if I see that Dad is suffering, I will tell him everything." Inji tried to convince Bjorn, but he did not change his mind. The next morning, Harry, where's my coffee? I told you I wanted coffee," Inji shouted. Harry was stunned. Where did this come from? He thought. He came out of the kitchen with coffee in his hands. Putting him in front of his wife, he began to leave without saying a word. "Well," said Inji. "So what? What took you so long? I'm not a coffee machine. You know, fresh coffee, it takes time. Don't talk to me like that." Harry left. Inji's attacks continued until the holidays. Bjorn tried to talk to his father. He could see signs of wear and tear on Harry. But Harry quietly told him that this was between Inji and him. He'll figure it out. The car and trailer were slowly moving south along the A2. There was tension in the car. For Harry, it was one of the worst days of his life. Inji's behavior towards him in the morning while loading the trailer worsened to outright humiliation, and Harry almost lost his temper. Harry now concentrated on driving to control his anger. He decided to confront Inji when they settled at their destination. Inji felt that Harry had almost reached his limit. She didn't dare say a word. It was extremely difficult because she always had something to say about his driving. After a 3-hour drive, they arrived and set up camp without a word. Nearly 24 years of experience had made it easy enough that Inji couldn't blame Harry. They dined in silence, and Harry went for a walk to clear his thoughts and restore his inner balance. 3 hours later, he returned. Harry felt refreshed, and his mood improved significantly. Inji wasn't at the trailer, so he went looking. He found her at the other end of the campsite with other campers drinking wine. He came up and said, "Honey, maybe we can go have dinner." Inji looked up and said, "Don't you see that I am in pleasant company? So please, fuck off." The others laughed, but Harry turned pale. He looked again and saw Inji turn and put her hand on one of the men's thighs. Seething with rage, he said, "As you wish, madam," and returned to the trailer. He had enough. Tomorrow he will run into NG and leave her. In preparation, he took out his wallet, took the car and drove to the village. At the ATM, he withdrew the maximum possible amount at one time. He did the same with a credit card before finding a branch of another bank and opening a new account. He then returned to the trailer, called his boss, and explained the situation, giving him information about the new bank account. "I need to take a vacation," he said. "You can take all your vacation if necessary. This is quite a long time, taking into account all the processing, almost 3 months. When this is over, you can apply for medical leave if the situation does not resolve. Thank you, I'll be in touch." At 1 o'clock in the morning, NG returned drunk and smelled of sex. NG was too drunk to notice Harry's mental state. She fell fully clothed on the bed and passed out. The next morning, NG woke up sick, with a hangover and a terrible headache. She squeaked, "Harry." There was no answer, so she got out of bed. Having received no reaction from Harry, she crawled outside. Harry sat in the morning sun, eating his breakfast with coffee, croissants fresh from the bakery, and orange juice on the table in front of him. He grinned, looking at the pathetic woman, and with a heavy, ironic voice said, "Well, well, look who they brought. You don't feel very well, do you?" NG wanted to say something, but her voice refused to obey her. Harry continued inexorably, "You better keep your mouth shut and listen carefully. Here are the papers for the car, along with the key, and the documents for the trailer." "What? Why?" NG wheezed. Harry almost shouted, "Be quiet while I speak." NG shuddered. Harry had never spoken to her like that before, let alone screamed at her. Harry continued, "Bank cards, here, credit card, all yours. I'm leaving." NG felt so sick that she could barely stand, but she was able to ask, "When will you come back? We need to talk." A cold calm washed over Harry. "You're asking the wrong question," he replied. "The question should be, will I return? And the answer to that is no, I won't go back. This is goodbye." With these words, he shouldered his backpack. NG screamed in panic, "No, no, no, this shouldn't have happened." Finally, NG desperately cried, "I love you. I just wanted you to man up and stand up for yourself. I wanted you to be angry with me." Harry looked at NG with disbelief in his eyes. "You did great. I'm really mad at you. I'm so angry there are no words strong enough to describe it. Better check the sheets after I leave. They look exactly like our marriage. Today I wanted to have a serious conversation with you about the state of our marriage. After your behavior over the past months, I had doubts about whether I wanted to stay married to you, but yesterday's behavior forced me to make a decision. Yesterday you made my task very easy. Better check for STDs. I'm sure they'll find something." Harry's last words really pierced the fog in NG's mind and hit her hard. "So, honey, I'm disappearing, just like you asked." And with that, Harry left. The physical discomfort and emotional assault became too much for NG. Crying her heart out, she staggered into the now very smelly trailer and passed out on the bed. Harry walked from the campsite towards the village. He thought to himself, leaving was the easy part. Now what? What should I do now and where should I go? He just started walking, feeling sad and depressed. Early that same day, Harry found himself a little north of Hulsberg. He checked into a guest house. Finally, when he was alone in his room, he collapsed. The realization of the situation caught up with him, and the end of his marriage was a black cloud shrouding his thoughts. Harry could handle NG's bullying, but the betrayal was too much. At the same time, NG woke up again. Her head hurt less, but her mouth tasted terrible. Carefully, she tried to stand up. Her world was still rocking, but her stomach was doing better. She went inside and gathered her toiletries, a towel, a toothbrush, and clean clothes before heading to the shower room. When the water warmed up, she undressed, feeling dirty. She tried to remember what happened last night, but her memories were hazy, to say the least. It finally dawned on her that her husband had noticed her condition and drawn conclusions. Harry has always been a gentle and forgiving person. He accepted her bullying and humiliation because of his love for her. Without her behavior over the past months, she would have had a chance to save their marriage after the affair, she thought. But the combination was too many things. She stood under the shower and cried. Harry was sitting in his room. After he cried his heart out, he did what made him so valuable to his employer, analyzing and finding solutions to problems that seemed impossible to solve. Now he had to apply these talents to himself. He was facing the breakdown of his marriage and had to take action. The divorce should have been relatively simple. They both had about the same income, but Harry needed a place to live, preferably close to work. He would never set foot in their home again. He called his boss and explained that the situation had deteriorated to the point that he needed a place to live. Harry was told that the company had several options and that the answer would be tomorrow. Meanwhile, he was looking for an apartment himself. Inji washed and washed herself, but she continued to feel dirty and finally gave up. Calling her children after this disaster was not an option, but instead she began cleaning up the mess in the tent, not wanting to face them just yet. The paracetamol she had taken began to take effect and flashes of yesterday's events began to appear in her mind, and Inji was horrified by her behavior. Stunned, she was trying to collect her thoughts and decide what to do when her phone rang. Annika. Mom, I can't contact Dad, and why didn't you answer the phone? What's happening? We had a quarrel. You've finally crossed all boundaries, haven't you? Where is Dad? I want to talk to him. I don't know where Harry is. He threw car keys, documents, and bank cards in my face and left, taking a backpack. What? What did you tell Dad to make him leave like that? You know how angry he gets when he's really angry. Mom, you're in big trouble. Do not say. I don't think he will ever come back to me. Something happened that Harry will not forgive. I can only hope that the divorce will be amicable. Divorce? Mom, what have you done that you even think there is no chance of reconciliation? Inji gathered her courage and told the whole story as she remembered it, including Harry's taunt about good company. Her voice shook as she told her daughter how she told him to leave. Annika was shocked. Mom, no! You foolishly pulled all the levers to get your way, didn't you? I will continue to try to contact my dad and talk to him. I'm definitely not going to interfere. You are alone in this. I warned you from the very beginning, but you had to do it. And you must tell Bjorn. He'll be pissed, and I'm not going to be your messenger. While you have 2 weeks in the trailer to sort out your problems, including how you'll get home since you can't drive, you'll have to find someone else. I won't come to help. Bye. Annika disconnected and immediately tried to call her father again. This time the line was busy. She sighed and said to herself, Good news. Dad is not hiding under a rock. Annika waited 10 minutes and tried again. Hi, Annie. How is my baby? Her father's voice sounded familiar, but seemed very tense. I don't know. Dad, you left your mother, I heard. Are we still family? Harry snorted and growled. You already talked to your mother, I believe, so she's conscious again. More importantly, did she tell you everything, including the disgusting details? Wait, before you answer this question, I will answer your question. No, I believe your mother left me, and it started about 6 months ago. Yesterday, she literally told me to lose myself in front of her new friends. And now, to my regret, I have to say it, there is no more family. My employer just called me. They have an apartment and a very good lawyer. I'll go back to the house now. I'll let you know what I have. New address as soon as I find it out myself. Annika cringed internally. My father is angry. I have never heard him so frank and decisive. And he really loved my mother. Now it seems like he hates the hell out of her. She said as calmingly as she could, Okay, Dad, I understand. Last question. Who will tell my little brother? Harry thought for a few seconds before answering. When you talk to him, just tell him that we broke up. Please don't tell the whole story. This will devastate him, and I have no idea how he will react. I told your mother that she should be the one to tell you the full story." They passed out, and Annika began to cry quietly. Harry, on the other hand, was even more determined to see this through. He could handle bullying and had the courage to fight back when things went too far. However, in his vocabulary, cheating was an absolute no-no. He remembered his youth and his first love. Harry was deeply in love. They were already planning the rest of their life together when she returned from holiday with her parents and told him that she had fallen in love with a local guy. He forgave her, and everything was fine until the next holiday. He was shocked to the core when he found several photos of her kissing someone else. When he confronted her, she admitted that she had cheated on him again. Harry shook his head in disgust and spat on the ground at her feet before turning and walking away. He never looked back, despite her pleas. Never again were his thoughts, never again. Better the pain of a split than the humiliation of a cheating woman. Even though her 4 parents supported her and begged him to show mercy again, he broke up with her. Remembering it so vividly, he realized that he would never become a participant in such a scene again. Now Harry packed his backpack and went to the bus station. Harry was sitting in his house. He no longer called it home drinking coffee. In an hour, he was scheduled to have a meeting with his CEO, Gerard Dirksen, and his lawyer. During a sleepless night, he collected items he couldn't live without and family heirlooms, such as a 250-year-old clock. The CDs, books, etc., were already packed and he was ready, but he still didn't know what awaited him, so he was in no rush to hire a van. Knowing Ng, he assumed that she would not be able to return home this morning, so he went to his office at the appointed time. Upon arrival, he was sent to the CEO's office, where his boss was already waiting for him. "Harry, have a seat. Coffee will be brought soon. Looks like you'll need it." "Did you sleep at all?" Gerard asked, shaking his head in concern as he asked Harry this question, since Harry was one of his best and most beloved employees. The clients loved him too. When Harry shook his head, Gerard continued. "Harry, let me introduce you to Mrs. Ella Herwire. She is the one who will help you with your divorce. I'm guessing you still want a divorce, don't you?" Harry replied, his voice shaking. "Yes, of course, and as soon as possible." Seeing the look on the lawyer's face, he stopped. "Please know that I am extremely tired. I apologize in advance, but can the divorce wait until I get some rest?" Gerard nodded. "Harry, I just wanted to clear up the matter of introductions so you can meet in private about this." She nodded too, and they exchanged phone numbers before the lawyer left. When they were alone, Gerard said quietly, "Okay, it's time to drop the formalities. I'm Gerard, and you're Harry. I've been through similar grief myself and don't want to see one of my best people give up, so I try to help. Now to the point. The company has 2 houses to choose from. One is in the city and the other is in the suburbs. The latter is close to public transport and within cycling distance." Harry answered without hesitation, "The one in the suburbs, please. I don't like being in the city. Too much fuss." Gerard breathed a sigh of relief. He hoped Harry would choose this option. The apartment in the city was smaller, but could be rented out for much more money. "Okay," he said, "here are your keys, and this is the address. The rent will be €750 per month. This will be deducted from your salary. You can take Harold and the company truck to move out of your old house. He's waiting outside." "Thank you, Gerard." "You're welcome, Harry, but one more thing. I don't want to see you here again until you talk to Mrs. Herwire. If you need help, you know where to find me." Harry recognized the deviation when he was fired, so he got up and left the office to find Harold. First, they went to Harry's new apartment and looked around it. It was an apartment on the 3rd floor of a 5-story building without an elevator. It had a living room, 2 bedrooms, a bathroom with shower and toilet. There was another toilet near the entrance, and a large balcony overlooked a park with a large pond. The apartment was furnished very modestly. There was only one single bed. Harry said, "Okay, Harold, I see that I don't need much from the old house. This must end quickly. Go." 2 hours later, the truck drove away from Harry's old house. He took everything he considered necessary, including several sets of bedding to tide him over and all his personal belongings. Before leaving, he wrote a short letter to Inji to inform her that she would soon receive a letter from his lawyer. Inji was in a panic. Harry had left her at the campsite with the car and trailer, so now her problem was getting home. The first thing she had to do was find Harry and beg him to show mercy. When she finally began to function normally, she went in search of a bus stop. Due to difficulties passing her license in her youth, she never received a Dutch license, and with public transport and Harry behind the wheel, she never. I didn't feel the need for it. Now realizing she was stuck, she realized she was at the mercy of the public transportation system. At the stop, she looked at the bus schedule and realized with horror that she had missed the last bus for the day. The next one was only the next morning at 7 o'clock. Inji returned to the camp and tried to find the people in whose company she spent that night. They were nowhere to be found, so she contacted the campground manager, who informed her that they had left early that morning after a party. She then tried to call Annika and Bjorn, but both rejected the calls, so she returned to the trailer. Out of desperation and with tears in her eyes, she began cleaning up the remains of her mess, meanwhile wishing it was the biggest mess she had to clean up. The next morning, after a very restless night, Inji was walking to the bus stop when the campsite manager saw her. "Are you going to the bus stop? The first one, at 7 a.m., is for local residents only. There is no connection with the train with the first, but there is with the second, an hour later." "Thank you," said Inji. With worry in her heart, she decided to keep walking to make sure she didn't miss the next one. Much later that day, Inji finally arrived at the street where they lived. She looked as peaceful as ever, which gave her hope as she walked towards her house that the storm had passed and Harry would be ready to forgive her. A truck passed by, startling her from her reverie before silence reigned again. The silence seemed more ominous now as she approached the front door of her house. Taking her keys, she unlocked and opened the door, calling, "Harry," but there was only ominous silence in response. She entered the living room, and the first thing she saw was that the antique clock was missing. Her stomach clenched, and she screamed, "No, no, no, this can't happen. We had to talk first. You can't leave already." Now Inji realized what was missing when she walked in, the ticking of the clock. It was as if my soul had been torn out of my home. She shook her head and rushed to check the bedroom and bathroom, only to find that all of Harry's personal belongings were gone, even his books and CDs. Inji sank into a chair, feeling that all this was unreal. She expected Harry to be home so he could vent his frustration and anger, and then they would make up. This is not at all what she imagined. This was much worse. She never expected him to ignore her and leave. Harry always said to Annika and Bjorn, "What's worse? When someone gets mad at you, or when someone acts like you don't exist? When someone is angry with you, that person still has feelings for you. But if you ignore someone..." This was when Harry found out that Bjorn had bought illegal substances for the party. Harry didn't even punish Bjorn. He simply told the boy, "We've discussed this many times. If you want to ruin your life, it's your decision. I don't want to be a part of this. You have a month to find a job and leave this house." Inji shuddered at the memory and the sudden realization that Harry was now doing the same to her. Instead of being angry with her, he cut her out of his life, ignoring her as if she didn't exist. But the worst part was that she caused all of this. She staggered into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator to get something to drink to calm her nerves, but closed it with a bang. No, what I drank that evening was at least partially responsible for this mess. Inji went to the kettle to make tea, but there she saw the envelope that Harry had left. She opened it and read the short message. "Inji, I'm humiliated enough. This marriage is over. I hired a lawyer. I advise you to do the same." Inji screamed loudly. He didn't even sign it. "But I'm not going to give up that easily, now that he's finally shown that he can be a man. If I can't have it, no one can." She threw the teapot across the kitchen, followed by the cup. Both crashed on the tiles. After almost a year, Harry had found a steady rhythm. Sleep, work, eat, repeat. Sleep, work, eat, and repeat. When he arrived at his apartment, he found the final divorce papers in the mailbox. The divorce itself did not go smoothly. Inji tried every possible trick to get Harry to talk to her. He consistently refused every attempt. Financially, everything was much simpler. When Harry began divorce proceedings, their incomes were roughly the same, and the same applied to their pension funds. There was no longer a mortgage on the house, and the estate agent estimated it could sell for well over $500,000. Harry's lifestyle was extremely modest. Harry worked about 12 hours a day, and thanks to this, he got very good results. He was given exceptionally high bonuses, so he had to find where to invest before the tax authorities wanted most of the money. Harry decided to look for a house for himself, a place with a garden where he could tinker with his motorcycle, and a place he could turn into what he called his library. He envisioned the space filled with books, but also wanted it to include his high-end stereo and music collection, and figured it would be topped off with a comfortable chair and sofa. He also needed a large, well-equipped kitchen and 3 bedrooms. With these thoughts in his head, Harry checked the internet and asked his work colleagues for recommendations for a good real estate agency. When he found one that was highly recommended and he liked it, he emailed to set up an appointment. After everything was arranged, he decided to celebrate this sad fact, so he bought a ticket to see Johannes Brahms's German Requiem. Harry thought this was an appropriate choice. Later that evening, after the concert, he found himself in the pub next to the concert hall, his mind still reliving the beautiful music. A very good Dutch Genever was standing in front of him when he heard a voice. "Harry, Harry Vander Goes, is that you?" He turned around and saw a tall woman looking at him intently. She wore the skirt just above her knees to show off her well-defined legs that ended in low-heeled shoes. She had a sleeveless blouse on top that hid a very nice pair of freely swinging B-cup breasts. "Sorry, miss, but you put me at a disadvantage. Do I know you?" Harry asked politely. The woman laughed. "I should be disappointed now. It puts me in my place. But no, not really. We went to school together. I was a year older and in the popular crowd. I really liked you because you were so collected and soft. But at that time, it was inappropriate for me to be in contact with you. I'm Evelyn Goodhart. You can call me Ava." Harry tried to remember that period, but nothing came to mind regarding Evelyn. He smiled and replied, "I should remember a beautiful woman like you, but nothing comes to mind. I hope you will accept my sincere apology. Can I make amends by offering you something to drink?" Evelyn replied, "Sorry, but I'm on a date. More of a terrible date, you might say. Maybe I'll take a rain check. Can you give me your phone number?" A man appeared behind Evelyn and barked, "Baby, leave that wimp. This is our date, and you're going to have a good time with me, a real man." Harry wrote his number on a piece of paper, folded it, and handed it to Evelyn. The man intervened and demanded that Evelyn give him the piece of paper. "You're my girlfriend, and I don't want you sneaking around with another man, even if he's a wimp." Evelyn angrily replied, "You're drunk. I'm definitely not your girlfriend. I agreed to this date because you helped me when I had car problems. But this was the first and last date, if you can call it that. I'd rather call an Uber because you can't drive, and I don't want to go anywhere with you anymore." "Well, you're a flirt. I'll show you," the man growled, raising his hand to hit Evelyn. But Harry was faster, hitting him hard in the solar plexus. Suddenly, the man was left breathless and staggered. Harry held him up so he wouldn't fall, holding the man's fingers in a lock. Speaking quietly to the anguished man, he said, This wimp is going to beat you to smithereens if you don't behave. Here's the condition. You pay for the ladies' drinks and leave quietly. I'll pay for Uber. Now nod if we deal." The man nodded and Harry released him. The man turned, his face pale with pain, and, having paid, left without a word. After he left, Harry called an Uber for Evelyn, who watched the entire scene with wide eyes. "That's what I remember from school," she said. "Even the biggest bullies didn't dare touch you or your friends. And you always helped people, tutored even the kids in our class, and otherwise went your own way. How did you do it with that man? He's much bigger than you." Harry said quietly, "I've been doing Krav Maga since I was 7 because I had serious anger issues. Krav Maga is a way to channel your energy and it builds confidence at the same time, so you can stay out of trouble knowing you can do it. Deal with them if necessary. In addition, I learned self-control and discipline." The Uber pulled up a moment later, and Harry paid the driver and bid Evelyn good night. The next day, Harry's phone rang. He looked at it and saw an unknown number. "Harry Vandergoes, how can I help you?" Evelyn replied, "Good afternoon, Harry. Tomorrow is my day off. I was wondering if you had any plans for tomorrow." "Actually, there is. I'm going to look at houses with a real estate agent." "Oh," was the only sound from Evelyn. Harry sensed that she was disappointed. Not wanting to lose touch with this beautiful and interesting woman, he quickly made a decision. "But, of course, I could use some help from the opposite sex in this matter. They are much more practical. Otherwise, I would buy myself a man cave. May I interest you in helping me?" Evelyn's enthusiasm in her quick and enthusiastic response left no doubt that she would like to see Harry. "Oh yeah, I'd really like that. Do you know what you'd like?" Harry suggested, "Why don't we talk about it over dinner? You choose. Either I cook for you, or you tell me which restaurant you like." Evelyn laughed and asked, "Can you cook?" Now Harry laughed. "I've never had a complaint, and I've never had leftovers when I made dinner. And before you start talking about small portions being the reason for this, no, I don't make small portions." "Really? I thought you were a bachelor who eats out every day." Before Harry could formulate a response, Evelyn continued, "So you cook for yourself, every day?" "Yes," said Harry. "I've been kind of a recluse lately. Last night was the first time in a year that I went to a concert and drank." "Oh, God, how did this happen?" "It's a story that is still too painful to remember. The only thing I can say is that the evening I met you, I found out that my marriage was officially and legally over. I felt like I had to celebrate that. With Requiem." She paused for a moment before saying, "Oh, sorry. In that case, I think I'll take a chance on your cooking skills. Harry, where and when do you want to meet?" Harry gave Evelyn his address, and she said she would arrive around 6. That evening at 5 minutes before 6, Evelyn stood in front of Harry's door, thinking to herself, "Grow up. There's nothing worth being nervous about." However, she was nervous, so she rang the doorbell with sweaty hands. Harry opened the door almost immediately. "Oh, you're already here. And oh, you look great." Evelyn wore a dress that showed off her slender figure. She had her long dark hair pulled back into a ponytail and light makeup highlighted her brown eyes. Evelyn blushed like a schoolgirl at Harry's sincere compliment and replied with a smile, "Well, you look good for a cook, too. But thanks. It's been a while since someone said that to me. May I come in?" "Where are my manners?" "Yes, of course. Lasagna is in the oven and will be ready in about half an hour. We'll have melon with Parma ham as an appetizer. What would you like to drink?" Evelyn had a wonderful evening, although she drank a little too much wine. The wine was a strong Italian wine that went well with lasagna, but after the third glass her head began to feel a little dizzy. Then, for dessert, blue al romandolo, an Italian blue cheese, and port wine were served, which made her condition worse. At the end of the evening, Harry looked at her and said quietly, I think I'll take you home. You drank too much. Evelyn, now no longer embarrassed, replied, Harry, I would prefer to stay with you for the night. When she realized what she had said, her face was covered with a deep blush all the way down to her neckline. Harry replied with a smile, I wouldn't want anything more, Evelyn, but I have a very strict rule. I won't sleep with a woman who's over her limit, and I mean the limit for driving a car. I had this rule even before marriage, and my divorce only strengthened it. Think about it, and let's see what tomorrow brings. Half an hour later, they were at Evelyn's house. Evelyn turned around, looked at her feet, and whispered softly, I know you don't think I'm beautiful enough to take me to bed, but can I have a kiss? Surprised, Harry took Evelyn's face in his hands, forced her to look at him, and said, Dear Evie, how can you even think that I don't find you beautiful? Please believe that I think you are a very attractive woman, and I would really like to make love to you. He paused to let it sink in. But Evie, not when you're half drunk. I don't want you to do something that you might regret later and ruin what's going on between us. To be completely honest, I'm falling in love with you, and I don't want you to be a one-time thing. Now, how about that kiss? Do you still want him? Evelyn nodded and closed her eyes. Harry's lips touched hers softly, and he felt her tremble. His tongue lightly touched the edge of her lower lip. Evelyn opened her mouth, and their tongues touched each other. What began as a careful exploration of someone else's lips quickly turned into a passionate, full-fledged kiss. When Harry released Evelyn's lips, they were both gasping for breath. Unable to speak, Evelyn held onto Harry as he asked, Got the message? It would be fantastic tonight, but we've only known each other for a few hours. I'm falling in love with you, so I want to slow down. The first time we're in bed together, I want to make love to you, not just sleep with you. There will always be regrets if we do this while half drunk. Now, do you still want to go house hunting with me tomorrow? Or are you too disappointed with me tonight? Evelyn raised her head sharply to look at Harry. Disappointed with you? When are you the first man since my divorce who doesn't rush into bed with me just because I said he can, and frankly explains why? I won't get rid of you so easily after this wonderful kiss. I like you too, you know, and if this is a sample of what's to come, I'll happily wait. It will be worth it. See you tomorrow. I'll make breakfast, okay? The next morning, around 8, it was Harry's turn to feel nervous. He knocked on her door, and she answered almost immediately, standing there in nothing but a loose linen blouse and Arabic pants. Movements under the blouse hinted that there was no bra underneath. Evelyn turned and walked inside, giving Harry access to her home. Harry's eyes feasted on the sight of the heart-shaped shape of her buttocks. He took a deep breath and said, Oh my God, woman, I need to focus on houses today. The way you look makes it almost impossible. What an outfit. Your appearance will cause riots. Evelyn melted in his arms and laughed. This is your punishment for yesterday's refusal and your reward. For yesterday's refusal. She smiled at him. You did wonders for my self-esteem with your little sermon. And yes, Harry, I am falling in love with you too. And I will wait, as you said, but oh God, how I will tease you. This is just the beginning. Now let's start breakfast with a kiss. Their lips met, and Evelyn thought it was even better than she remembered. After a delicious breakfast, Evelyn asked Harry to wait while she changed into more suitable clothes for viewing houses, grinning and saying, And keep your blood where it belongs in your brains. Don't you think I didn't notice anything when you kissed me? When she returned, she was dressed modestly in a sweater, jeans, and sneakers. Let's go, she said, smiling and taking his arm. The real estate agent seemed focused solely on business when they met, but his eyes kept flicking to Evelyn. He told them that he had 4 houses planned to show, 1 in the city, 2 in the suburbs, and 1 in a small village nearby. But the latter required significant repairs. Harry's reaction was immediate. Skip the one in town. I made it clear that I wanted a garden. When the agent walked them through the houses, one of the suburban houses was also ruled out, so they went to look at another. As they drove, Harry couldn't help but think that he had seen this man before. The agent constantly talked to Evelyn, praising the house, garden, and surroundings, completely ignoring Harry, his client. Feeling uncomfortable, Harry checked Google Maps for the area's layout and found that it was very close, almost too close, to the airport. It was not a quiet area at all, as planes flew here most of the day. As he listened, he heard one fly over them. Now wary, he also checked other houses that had sold recently and their sale prices. Twice as expensive. Other houses sold for much less than this one. It would have to be a really special home to justify that price. Or, Harry began to pay closer attention to the conversation between Evelyn and the agent and noticed the cunning way in which the man was trying to seduce Evelyn, just as he was trying to deceive him. The house itself was nothing special to warrant such a premium, just one of many, a typical clone among many others. Realizing this, Harry whispered furiously under his breath before attacking. "So tell me, do you want to deceive another man too?" The agent looked at Harry in surprise. "What do you have in mind?" Harry replied, his voice dripping with venom. "Well, you're trying to scam me out of an extra 100,000, and you're trying to seduce my girlfriend. So go to hell. I'm leaving and filing a complaint with your agency." He turned to look at Evelyn. "I think we're done here." Evelyn, who had seen the agent's intentions, was more than a little surprised by Harry's reaction and asked, once the man had left, "Why?" "First of all, he doesn't treat you with the respect you deserve. Secondly, he tried to scam me out of an extra 100,000 for a house. And I know him from somewhere, but I can't remember where or why. Now I don't trust him, so I'll call a taxi to take us back, and we'll go see the last house ourselves after we get the keys from the agency." After a short conversation at the real estate agency, they received the keys to the last house. In the car in Formont, Evelyn asked, "Harry, am I your girlfriend?" Harry smiled dreamily before answering, officially, "No. But the guy was flirting with you, and that, coupled with the overpriced house, made me angry. Plus, I know that face from somewhere, but I can't remember where. So, to give you a full and honest answer to your question, yes, I was a little jealous, and I would really like you to be my girlfriend. So, Evelyn, I know we only met a few days ago, but I think, like months have passed. Will you become my girlfriend?" Evelyn looked surprised, trying to see the joke on Harry's face, but he looked completely serious. She asked, "Are you kidding me, Harry? I'm coming out of a very difficult marriage, and I couldn't handle something like that again. Please don't ask unless you're serious." Harry smiled uncertainly and replied, "I'm as serious as a heart attack." "Harry, I already said that I liked you at school, and in this short time you have only confirmed my opinion about you. Yes, I would really like to be your girlfriend." The house in Formont was suitable, but it had problems, so Harry called a specialist to check how safe the building was. He also invited a contractor to estimate the cost of a new roof and other necessary work. Harry had other ideas, but they had to wait. The house, due to its dilapidated condition, was within Harry's budget, but due to the approach of the first real estate agent, Harry, rather out of spite, offered 50,000 less than the asking price. He said to Evelyn, "Now we wait. It's late. How about dinner?" 3 weeks later, after some tough negotiations, Harry could call himself the owner of a house in Formont. The seller was happy, Harry was happy, but the real estate agency was far from happy. The seller received 10,000 more than he expected, and Harry paid almost 40,000 less than the agency listed the house for, so they lost a lot of commission. Everything came together when Harry's company offered him a new contract. It was much better than the old one and was 3 years old, so Harry decided to celebrate. Harry and Evelyn were celebrating at a restaurant when Evelyn asked, "Harry, your company also deals with corporate promotions, doesn't it?" "Yes, why are you asking?" "When I was divorcing my ex-husband, he was quite rich, but he tried to hide it. His twin brother knew about it and decided, after everything I had been through, that it was unfair, so he told the judge. Now I am wealthy, but my ex is still trying to get his hands on these shares. I need to transfer them somewhere. Harry replied that he would do that first thing the next morning. Later that evening, he asked something else that had been on his mind for a long time. Isn't it time you met Annika and Bjorn? If you want, of course. Evelyn happily said that she would be happy and that this was a big step for her. So Harry told her that he would invite them to dinner together so they could get to know each other. 2 weeks later, they were sitting in a very nice Turkish restaurant at a table laden with food, with delicious smells tickling their nostrils. After the initial awkward moment, Bjorn and especially Annika got along well with Evelyn. They were joking with her and teasing their father when, to their surprise, Ingi appeared next to the table. Harry tensed. Ingi, you're not invited. What do you want? Ingi grinned. I wanted to take a look at your new girlfriend. Is this your fourth or fifth? And she left. Harry looked around and asked out loud, what is she talking about? How did she know we were here? Annika said, we don't know, Dad. Maybe she followed one of us. After a few minutes, Evelyn excused herself to go to the toilet, so Harry and his children discussed Ingi's surprise appearance and her comment. When asked, Harry said, Evelyn is the first and only woman I've been involved with since the end of our marriage, and we didn't meet until the day the divorce was finalized, a year after it started. He was about to say more, but Evelyn came back, red in the face and looking very angry. How could you? How could you treat that poor woman like that? She exclaimed, practically screaming. I don't want to see you again, ever. Evelyn rushed out of the restaurant under the surprised glances of everyone present. Ingi then returned with a big grin on her face. Well, now that that's over, you and I need to talk. Harry stood with a murderous expression on his face as he said through clenched teeth, even if we were the last two people on Earth, I would rather die than talk to you. Go to hell. Harry looked furious in Ingi's eyes, but she saw him ignore her through his anger as he turned to his children. I'm going to pay for dinner and then find Evelyn to find out what the hell happened. He left and Ingi was about to follow him when Annika grabbed her hand. Angrily, Ingi turned to her daughter and then looked in the direction where Harry had disappeared. Annika, with a voice trembling with anger, said, Ingi, how could you? You are no longer my mother. I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't want to see you. Forget my number and forget my address. You are dead to me. I understand. Dead. Now get lost. Bjorn was less eloquent. I agree. The same goes for me. And he added in the same spirit, come on, Annika. The air here is polluted at this table. They walked out, leaving Ingi in a daze as the restaurant owner came to her side. In a whisper he said, Madam, you have made me lose a very good client. I request you to leave before any accidents happen. Ingi was indignant. Are you threatening me? The owner replied, No, madam, but my guards will force you out if necessary. A few moments later, Ingi was outside without further assistance. She was furious with Harry. How dare he get out of her control like this, and then leave again before they could sort it out? She seethed with rage, thinking about everything that had happened, and came to the conclusion that she would not find him that evening. The next morning, Harry tried to contact Evelyn, but she refused all contact. Even his letter was returned unopened several days after it was sent. Harry was devastated and fell back into sleep, work, eat, repeat mode. With Evelyn suddenly out of his life, all thoughts of socialization ceased, and in the following days he stopped interacting with people in general, with the exception of his children and work colleagues when necessary. A couple of weeks after the events in the restaurant, Harry was called into the office of Gerard Dirksen, the company's CEO. Lawyer Ella Herwire entered a few seconds after him. Gerard's usual friendliness disappeared as he asked, Mr. Vander Goes, are you familiar with the no flirting clause in your contract? Surprised, Harry replied, "Yes, of course. Why do you ask?" The lawyer intervened, "Because we have evidence that you are communicating with one of our clients, Mrs. Evelyn Goodhart. Do you have any comments on this matter?" Harry was stunned. He stuttered, "Actually, no. I knew Mrs. Goodhart before she became a client here." Mrs. Herwire immediately retorted, "You know that this is a reason for dismissal, right? The company cannot afford scandals if the relationship goes awry. This conversation also indicates that your contract has been terminated. Human Resources will inform you of the procedure. We also want you to hand over your laptop and phone." Harry could feel the pressure rising. He counted to 10 and back, but by the time he reached 0, his anger had reached its limit. The angrier he became, the quieter and more insistent he spoke to his opponents. Now he was almost whispering, "You are completely wrong. Mrs. Goodhart and I were friends even before she became a client of this company. In fact, I brought her in as a client when she needed someone to manage her account. We are more. We haven't met for 2 weeks, so if you continue with the dismissal, I will consider it an unjustified dismissal and will act accordingly. And one more thing. The laptop and phone are my personal property. I can show you the receipts. With me." Now it was Dirkson's turn to stutter. He didn't expect Harry to answer. The whole incident with Harry's ex-wife made him think that Harry was easy to give in to. This time he hesitated over the words, "There is sensitive information on these devices, so I demand them." "You demand what? Check your contracts. This information is confidential between the account and the account manager of this company. I am the account manager. This is clearly stated on all accounts I manage, not yours. So, what will you do?" The lawyer, clearly with her ego bruised, said, "Your contract will be terminated immediately. The reason given will be flirting with clients. You will receive written confirmation when you leave. I also need a list of the accounts you managed so we can tell them what they have. There will be a new manager soon. I also insist that your laptop and phone be confiscated." Harry chuckled darkly. "Good luck with that. You'll hear from my lawyer soon." A few months later, Harry emerged from court with a grim face, even though everything had gone as he had predicted. The company was required to pay Harry the full amount for the remainder of his contract, including bonuses, based on an average over the last 3 years. Given his lifestyle, he no longer needed to work. To make matters worse for the company, a number of account holders asked Harry to continue working for them and transferred their business from the company to Harry. The judge did not take into account Mrs. Herwire's and Mr. Dirkson's complaints that Harry had stolen the accounts. After leaving court, Harry called Annika and Bjorn to invite them to celebrate with him that evening. But first he went home. He needed a swim. His house was now finally ready, and he had everything he wanted. His library, large kitchen, garage, and next to the master bedroom are 2 independent guest bedrooms. He built an extension at the back with a gym and training pool. The pool was only 2.5 meters wide, 8 meters long, and 1.5 meters deep, but Harry installed turbines that created the effect of a fast-flowing river. Since the pool was installed, Harry has used it every day. Physically, Harry was in excellent shape. Swimming, running as cardio and Krav Maga for strength and endurance got him that way, but mentally he was slowly sinking. He recently bought an old 1968 BMW R69's motorcycle. It was still sitting untouched in his garage. Harry couldn't find the mental energy to attend to it. To his clients and children, he appeared to act the same as always. Internally, however, he felt insecure and depressed and decided that he would never enter into another relationship again. All trust has been lost, and in the end, it just hurts too much. Annika and Bjorn agreed to meet early at a restaurant, which, as luck would have it, turned out to be the same one Evelyn jumped out of. They were both very worried about Harry and couldn't find a way to get him out of his depression. He refused consultations. He refused to go out, politely rejecting every woman who showed interest in him. The brother and sister discussed the situation, but it seemed to no avail. While they were talking, they noticed Evelyn enter the restaurant with a man, but they had no time to say anything to her as Ng suddenly appeared at their table. Annika said loudly and angrily to her mother, "What are you doing here?" Ng objected, "I want to talk to you. This comedy has lasted too long. I am your mother." Bjorn stood up and looked his mother in the eyes. His voice trembled with suppressed anger as he said, "After what you did to my father, I no longer have a mother. You almost destroyed my father, and I, like Annika, will not stand for it. You are not welcome here and not welcome. There is no chance in hell that my father will take you back after the way you treated him, and I seriously suspect that you are behind his dismissal from the company. So, in your words, be it, okay, get lost." Ignoring her mother, Annika took out her phone, dialed a number and said, "Dad, we'll come to your place. We'll get something to go. What would you like?" "Why?" Harry was surprised. "Oh, this restaurant is infested." Harry's children headed towards the exit, but they saw that a man, apparently Evelyn's date, suddenly stopped them on the way out. "Hello," he said. "Allow me to introduce myself. I am Jake Goodhart, Evelyn's brother. It appears my sister has been deceived about your father by this scheming woman. Is there a way for me to meet you alone to talk about this?" Annika was surprised by his revelation and proposal, but quickly realized, "Here's our chance. At least I hope so." She quickly gave Jake her business card, with her personal number written on the back, then smiled across the room at Evelyn to show that she had no hard feelings towards her. To Jake she said, "Please call me soon. My father is a recluse now, and we can't get him to perk up. As you just saw, my mother is not helping at all." Jake nodded and joined his sister before leading her to their table. Evelyn, feeling anxious, asked her brother, "What are you doing? This man wants nothing to do with me anymore." Jake responded, "That remains to be seen, and you haven't been on your best behavior either since you ran out, poor guy. I suspect you still have feelings for him. Take this chance. I'm calling. Ah." He looked at the card and realized that he didn't even know the girl's name. "Annika tomorrow, first thing in the morning, to get everything ready. This needs to be done now, otherwise the momentum will be lost." The next morning at 8:30, Annika's phone rang. She saw an unknown number. "This is Annika Vandergo speaking. Good morning." "Annika, this is Jake. We met yesterday. Good morning to you too. I hope I'm not too early, but I don't want to give Evelyn time to cool down. I'm quite sure she still has feelings for your father. When can we meet?" "No, Jake, you're not too early yet. Actually, I was hoping you'd call soon. My father is getting depressed. He tries to hide it, but we see him melting." "Did you say that Evelyn still has feelings for my father?" "Oh yes, of course. When we meet, we, or rather she, will tell you all about it. My sister has been moping since she ran away from that restaurant. I have already booked us a table there twice in the hope of meeting you, because I didn't know how you or Harry would react if I somehow managed to contact you. The third time's the charm, isn't it? You can come to me, say, around 5. I know it's too early. But I think we have some work to do, and we also need to find some common ground. I'll call my brother and see if he's available at that time. I hope we can come up with something that makes two people happy. By the way, you must love your sister very much to do such a thing." "Yes, she always took care of me. Now is the time to return the favor. See you at 5. If your brother can't come at 5, let him come as soon as he can. I'll write you the address." "Fine. We'll take care of the drinks. Wine, beer, what do you like?" "Can you do both? I like beer, but Evelyn likes wine." "Consider it done. Have a nice day. See you at 5. Just a few minutes after 5, 5 people were sitting around the huge kitchen table. The fifth person was Jake's wife, Lisa. She poured the wine while Jake loaded the table with food, including a large platter of turnips, carrots, new potatoes, and chicken legs, slow roasted with rosemary, lemon, and garlic, as well as freshly baked bread to dip in the juices, casserole, and spicy chicken broth for a snack. After looking at all the food, Annika politely asked, "Do we talk while we eat or wait?" "No," Jake replied. "We better start now." Annika looked at Evelyn and asked her, "Evelyn, can you tell me what our mother told you about my father?" Evelina blushed. "I will try. Keep in mind that she described my ex-husband to the fullest. That's why I panicked." She took a deep breath and said, "That's it. I went to the bathroom. Your mother was already there. She asked me if Harry had told me why he got divorced. When I told her that he didn't, she said that he had been verbally and mentally abusive to her for months, and on the first day of her vacation, when she went for a walk, he went out drinking with strangers. When she returned, he was kissing another woman and told her to leave because he was having fun. Later that night, she told me that Harry had been rude to her, so she ran home." Annika and Bjorn looked at Evelina with big eyes and shook their heads before Bjorn responded. "The story is almost true, but there is one detail. It was not my father who did this to my mother, but the other way around. On top of that, my mother arranged for my father to be fired on false allegations of a relationship with a client, you, Evelyn, and they had a photo of you and Dad from the day she spoke to you." Evelina turned white as a sheet while Bjorn spoke. When he had finished, she said in a low voice, "First of all, is Harry who he seems to be? Did I throw away a decent man because I was stupid enough to believe the lies your mother told me?" Evelyn began to sob uncontrollably. Annika ran around the table and quietly whispered in her ear, "Maybe there is still a way to make you two happy with each other." She looked around the table and said, "What should we do?" Lisa commented, "No matter what we try, your mother will always try to stop it. The mental state she's in now will always cause problems, so I think you two will have to deal with that first. Now I can think of something, but it's not something you'll like, so it's your decision." Bjorn immediately replied, "Spit it out. We will do almost everything." Lisa moved on. "You have to let your mother back into your life." Both of Harry's children looked sharply at Lisa, and both wanted to say something, but she raised her hand. "Listen to me," she said. "To do this, she must comply with certain conditions. Firstly, she should leave your father alone and stop interfering in his life, and secondly, she should go to a psychiatrist to sort out her problems. There's something wrong with her." Annika and Bjorn looked at each other for a few moments and then nodded slowly. "This is an idea. We can do this, right, bro?" Annika said. "Now, what do we do with my father?" Harry was in the pool and swam until he was exhausted. He was having a bad day and was trying to get rid of his disappointment in his body. At 47, he looked very fit. Swimming and Krav Maga did wonders for his body. He was forced to buy himself new clothes because the old ones no longer fit. His shoulders widened, revealing the muscles of his arms and back. His stomach was flat, clearly defined, and his butt was toned. He had never been a homebody, but now women began to notice him. That's why he was so upset that evening. Harry was rich, lived in a beautiful house, and generally appeared to be a healthy member of the human race. The only problem was that after 2 failed relationships, he wasn't interested in trying another relationship. Women especially began to pester him, and he had to politely dissuade them. Earlier that day, the client would not take no for an answer and threatened Harry with transferring her portfolio to another company. Harry recommended his former company to her and, much to her disappointment, turned the woman down. Finally, his muscles aching with fatigue and his lungs burning in his chest, he staggered up the stairs and out of the water. He was drying himself when the doorbell rang. Harry put on shorts and a t-shirt before checking the street camera and angrily opening the door. "Ng, how frankly should I express myself? Whatever you want, the answer is no. Now leave." Harry slammed the door and activated the security system, turning it into recording mode. If it gets to the bottom, he will want to ask for a restraining order, and this will require evidence. Inji felt good as she approached Harry's house. Inji hasn't seen Harry for several months. She tried everything in the book to get him to talk to her. Since he did not respond to her letters and messages and did not answer her calls, she ruined his date and ruined his work. Now she has come to offer her help, because without a job, he would be left in poverty, right? Inji dressed up for the occasion in something that would have driven Harry crazy in the old days. She also did her hair and spent an hour in front of the mirror at her dressing table. Confident in herself and her plan, she called. The door quickly opened and she looked at her ex-husband. This was not the man she knew before. This man had broad shoulders and a strong build. Only the exhausted face reminded her of old times before Harry's reaction caught her even more off guard, leaving her much to be desired. Harry responded with the same words that destroyed her marriage and then slammed the door on her. Once again, Inji felt her tears threatening to ruin her makeup. Immediately after meeting his ex-wife, Harry's phone rang. What? Dad? What did she want? I don't know. I didn't give her time to open her mouth. I shouted at her to get lost and slammed the door in her face. So reconciliation is still not in the cards for her. Dear daughter, when your mother tore out my soul for months and shredded it, openly deceiving, a hole formed in me where my soul used to live. Somehow that emptiness was filled again, but something in me was gone. My love for your mother has almost evaporated, and some of my compassion for other people has also disappeared. There is definitely no place for Inga in my life anymore. Please understand that she is your mother and you only have one. Don't do anything you might regret later, like cutting her out of your life. And Evelyn, I don't know. I tried to call her for days, but to no avail. I assumed she didn't want to see me anymore after that little conversation with your mother, so I blocked her number and deleted it. Although I still dream about her, I wake up suffering and missing her. Dad? Yes. When will you come out of your shell? I don't know. My daughter, I know I'm in a bad place mentally. I'm not ready to seek help from a psychiatrist yet. I'm also crazy about women who think I'm an easy target or need their help. Last question. Can we come tomorrow? Maybe for dinner? Fine. At 6 o'clock. Use your keys so I can swim from 4 to 5 and still have time to cook. I like the idea. Okay, Dad. See you tomorrow. Love you. They hung up, leaving Annika delighted. She immediately called Evelina. Eva, be at my house tomorrow at 3:30. We should be at Dad's between 4 and 5. I tricked him into believing that Bjorn and I would be coming for dinner. Start thinking about what you're going to wear, Annika said happily. Evelyn, on the other end of the line, was also excited and replied, Thank you, Annika. See you then. In truth, Evelyn had already decided what she would wear if given the opportunity. She'd be wearing the same outfit she'd worn when she'd answered Harry's door that morning when they'd gone home hunting. She smiled, remembering the effect it had on him. Inji tried to call her children many times. She wrote letters. She even knocked on their doors, but her number was blocked. Her letters remained unanswered, and the doors were never opened to her. In desperation, she tried Annika again. Mom, why are you calling? Do you know that we don't want any contact with you? I needed to hear your voice. I miss you both so much. Tell me what I need to do to see you again, please. I already tried to help your father now that he was fired, but he wouldn't let me. Ha! Dad doesn't need help, especially not yours. In fact, he's been doing really well lately. She paused, feeling that now was the right time to continue with her plan. Björn and I were talking about you recently, and Dad even told us that we only have one mother, and we will regret it later if we continue to ignore you. So Bjorn and I came up with 2 things you should do before we even start talking to you. Are you listening? Yes, yes. Anything? I'll do anything. Okay, that's it. First of all, leave Dad alone. Stop ruining his life. We both know who made his girlfriend run away and who got his dad fired with that photo. The only funny thing is that they botched the procedure so badly that Dad walked away very rich and took a bunch of clients with him. So leave Dad alone. Inji was shocked to hear this, but nodded, even though Annika was far away. Okay, I promise. And secondly, go to a psychiatrist to help you deal with your obsession with your dad. Otherwise, you'll be back at it again in 6 months. Admit it. He will never take you back. Never. I don't know. I will go with you. It's part of the deal. And Bjorn? Will he see me too? I speak for both of us. We already agreed in advance and knew that you would call me. Then I agree to both conditions. Fine. Let us know when you have your first doctor's appointment. I'll go with you, as I promised, and leave Dad alone. Inji was delighted. Annika and Björn wanted to talk to her again. The conditions did not suit her, but in her opinion, over time she would be able to overcome them. She would leave Harry alone for a while. She will have another chance when the family is back together. The next day, Annika and Evelyn walked into Harry's house when Annika whispered to Evelyn, "You look absolutely stunning." Evelina smiled nervously. She whispered back, "What should I do now? I'm so nervous, I feel nauseous." "Best of all, you surprise him in the pool. I'm absolutely sure that he won't run away from you from there," Annika said, knowing full well that her father always swam naked at home. Evelyn threw her coat on the sofa and looked around. The strictness of the house told her a lot about Harry's mental state. She gathered all her courage and walked through the gym to the pool. There she saw Harry swimming with long, strong strokes. She noticed how he had changed. His shoulders and back muscles shook with effort, but his head was constantly in the water. He'll never see her standing here. Evelyn had hydrophobia and was afraid of water, but she was desperate to get Harry's attention, so she took off her blouse and dropped her pants. Completely naked, she took a deep breath and took the plunge. Evelyn didn't realize that the jets in the pool were running almost at full capacity. The current carried her under the water, and a few seconds later she collided with Harry. Instinctively, he grabbed it, and it took another second for the current to carry them to the other side of the pool. There Harry stopped and the flow subsided, although Evelyn clung to him as if her life depended on it. Harry looked up from the button and saw Evelyn's frightened face. "Evelyn, what are you doing?" he started. But Evelyn began to choke with fear and panic. I, was all that came out of her mouth. Harry felt her breasts press against his chest and realized that she was naked too. In those few seconds, Evelyn's panic had reached almost its full extent, and she was severely hyperventilating. So there was only one thing Harry could do to stop her. He put his hands behind her head, pulled her towards him, and kissed her. After a few moments, Evelyn's eyes opened. When she finally let him go, they were both breathing heavily. Evelyn screamed, "Please don't send me away. Don't kick me out. Please let me explain first, please." Harry was completely stunned. Very surprised, he replied, "I won't kick you out. But you really need to explain something. First of all, how did you get here?" Annika shouted from the gym door, "You can blame me. Dad, I have coffee and tea in the kitchen. So when you're decent, Evelyn, will you come?" Evelyn smiled and shouted back, "I'm coming. When will I be decent? It may take a while, though." When Harry and Evelyn entered the kitchen, they met Annika's questioning gaze. Harry explained, grinning, "She jumped into the pool." Evelyn added, "He didn't look up, so I had to do it. But I'm not going to do it again, ever." All three sat down at the table. Annika quietly said to her father, "Dad, I hope you're not mad at us for interfering in your life, but you're so unhappy that we had to do something." And then we met Jake and Evelyn. Harry frowned. "Jake?" Evelyn quickly interrupted him. "My little brother." "Oh, came Harry's response. I think I'll stop trying to figure it all out. I'll explain if you promise me that you won't get angry and let me finish my story because it's quite long. Annika already knows. That's why I'm here now. I understand it, and I trust my children unconditionally. That's why you can explain, otherwise you would have been kicked out already. Evelyn took a deep breath, looked at Annika with gratitude and asked, Shall I start? The sooner this is over, the better. Harry just nodded. His gaze fell on Evelyn's swaying breasts. When I met you, Harry, I was on my first date after a bad marriage, and you yourself witnessed how that date ended. And again, another disaster. It started out as a marriage in a dream, but the abuse started soon after. Verbal at first, but soon physical. She saw his look and nodded. Police? Where we lived, they were very conservative and women should know their place. I could never prove he was abusive until he went too far and I ended up in the hospital. Now he is in prison. Then I met you. Harry, I've always liked you. At school you went your own way and did not tolerate jocks. Ignored the queens, even when they rushed at you. They only did this because you ignored them. In addition, you helped everyone who asked with assignments in mathematics, chemistry, and physics. Even when we only knew each other for a few hours, I felt like I had known you for years. I was falling in love with you. When you asked if I wanted to be your girlfriend, I felt like never before. You didn't rush me. About a month later, you took me to meet Annika and Bjorn at that restaurant. Your ex-wife appeared there and ironically said that I was your fifth girlfriend, as if you were dating all of us at once. My heart sank. When she told me those lies about you, she described my ex-husband to perfection. I panicked, and the only thing I could do was run away as fast as I could. It took me a few days to calm down. I was so afraid that I ignored all your requests to talk to me, returned your letter, and did not open it when you were at my door. A week later, I saw Jake and told him everything that happened. He, in turn, said that perhaps this was all a lie from a jealous ex-wife. After this conversation with my brother and with his support, I tried to call you, but to no avail. Harry nodded, remembering how he had blocked her number and removed her from his contact list. I didn't have the courage to knock on your door because I was afraid that you would refuse me, she said, bowing her head. Harry asked, How did you have the courage to come today? Jake, Bjorn, and I pushed her. Dad, Annika replied before Evelyn could open her mouth. And Evie, why did you decide to jump naked into my pool? Evelina's heart began to beat faster. He named her Evie. She replied, I don't know. You had your head in the water, and I wanted your attention so badly that I overcame my hydrophobia. When the current carried me away, I was so scared. Harry, but you saved me. Her eyes were clouded, and she fought back tears as she continued. I'm so sorry I ran away without asking your side of the story. I just don't know what came over me. And I'm sorry that I was too much of a coward to come here. Can you forgive me? Harry looked at Annika and then at Evelyn. He whispered, Evie, I already told Annika that I still dream about you, and it hurts every time I wake up. I have no choice, do I? Do you know Avalanche by Leonard Cohen? You are that avalanche, my avalanche, twice. The first time was during our first dinner together, and the second time was when you kissed me. Evelyn's mouth opened, closed, and opened again, but no sound was heard, and her eyes filled with tears. Harry knelt down next to her, took her face in his hands, and forced Evelyn to look him in the eyes. Evie, look at me. Do you really want to be with someone as broken as me? Personally, I would really like for you to come back again. But we both have problems to solve. Maybe we can seek advice. Evelyn finally found her voice. Does this mean you're taking me back? No. Evelyn went white as a sheet in a second, but Harry quickly continued, wiping a tear from her cheek. I never told you to leave, did I? You ran away. Actually, I have to ask you if you want me to come back. Evelyn couldn't believe her luck and squeaked. Yes, yes, very much. I was so stupid that I allowed myself to be played like that. Can I stay here tonight? Dad, Evelyn, I'm sorry to interrupt, but now this has a happy ending. I have something else to tell you. And this also applies to Evelyn, Annika intervened. Cupid's daughter, my daughter. Annika took a deep breath and began. Bjorn and I decided to let our mother back into our lives, under two conditions. First, she will leave you alone and stop sabotaging your life. Secondly, she will turn to specialists for help. Fine, Harry said decisively. It's very wise of you to let your mother back in. This makes me very happy. If it helps ease the tension in the future, I promise I'll behave when I meet her. Annika and Evelyn's heads snapped up, both wanting to say something. Harry continued before they could. It doesn't mean I'll invite her to dinner, but there will be a time when you or your brother want to have a family dinner or something. Annika sighed. Oh, Daddy, you're so cute. Thank you. And she kissed him on the cheek. Now I'm going to leave you. Evelyn, are you coming? She grinned. Evelyn, still unsure, looked at Harry. Should I? Harry smiled. Not because of me. I have a spare bedroom. He laughed loudly and said, But whichever room you choose, you will find me in bed. Evelyn blushed and smiled at the same time. That evening, Evelyn and Harry kissed on the sofa, and Harry couldn't keep his hands off her. Harry's breathing gradually became normal, and he was the first to find his voice. Will you marry me? She straightened up and looked at Harry with big eyes and asked, What did you just say? Harry repeated, Will you marry me? Evelyn didn't say anything for a long time, and finally asked, Do you really want to marry me? You don't have to. I am yours, without a ring or with a ring, and I solemnly promise you that I will stay by your side in good times and bad, and that I will leave all other people. Harry replied, That's enough for me. I swear the same thing, except for the part about men. Let's replace this for me with other women. Consider us married. Now do you want to move, or should I? Evelyn laughed a happy laugh and told Harry that she would take her things from her apartment. I have no reason to move, she said. I think after the divorce I was still in flight mode. Dear Evie, he can't hurt you anymore. If he tries, I'll break all his bones. The next morning, Harry called Annika and Bjorn to tell them the good news, and after breakfast he and Evelyn went to pick up her things. A year later, Harry finished swimming and watched Evelyn swim slowly in the pool. It took a while, but she had overcome her hydrophobia, and now Harry couldn't get enough of the sight of a naked Evelyn cutting through the water. For his amusement, she also learned to float on her back, but this invariably caused him to dive again when she did it. Harry hummed to himself as he walked back to his office. He made a short walk along the mailbox, took out the mail, and threw it on the table. Coffee first, he thought. He prepared 2 cups, placed them on the table, and was already looking through the mail when Evelyn entered. She sat down and took the cup he offered. As she sorted through part of the pile, she remarked aloud, There is one unstamped letter addressed to you, not your company. Harry took the letter and immediately recognized the handwriting. He moaned loudly. No, not again. She promised. Evelyn asked, Harry, look at me, please. Harry looked up, dumbfounded, so Evelyn continued. I know that NG wrote this letter. We talked about this when we met at Bjorn's. The 3 of us spoke. NG is together again. When NG realized what she put you through, she fell apart and became depressed. Now she is recovering, and this letter is partly her atonement. Please read it. Harry growled. I don't need to interact with that woman. I need to be left alone. Evelyn stood up, took the coffee from Harry, and sat down on the table facing him. Yes, Harry, otherwise it will haunt you. Read the letter. The latter came out with force. Harry knew better than to object when Evelyn spoke to him in that tone. Nodding slowly, he relented and opened the envelope. Dear Harry. Yes, it's still Dear Harry to me, although I know you think differently and I still love you. I also know from our children that you no longer hate me so much that you don't care about me at all. When they released this information, I was stunned. But enough about me. In this letter, I want to tell you that I am very sorry. When you left, you told me that you were so angry with me that there were no words strong enough to describe it. Right now, I don't have enough words to tell you how sorry I am. I destroyed our marriage beyond repair. I tried to ruin your life at least 3 times and pushed you away to the point where you stopped caring altogether. Annika and Björn forced me to go to counseling, and the counselor was cruel. Her mirror told me that I was jealous, selfish, and entitled. Because of this, I caused you terrible pain. I won't ask for forgiveness, not because I don't want to be forgiven, but because I feel like I don't deserve it. The children told me that you will behave politely with me. You can also do this by ignoring me. I dated several men. I now realize that I threw it away because someone told me that to keep a marriage interesting, it takes struggle. I have strife, but without marriage. I only ask for one thing. Please let me into your life again for the sake of our children. I am not going to haunt you again, and I will never intrude into your life again. But please, when we meet, will you talk to me? Just say hello. I'm longing for some words from you. With repentance and love. Ingy. Harry looked at Evelyn's expectant face and sighed slowly. I'll think about it. Don't expect an answer any time soon. I don't like it when people get frisky with my feelings. Evelyn wanted to say something, but stopped when she saw that Harry's face was expressionless, and his eyes were like stones, completely emotionless. She nodded silently, knowing she needed to give him time. Harry went into his garage to tinker with his second BMW. It was a 1949 R24, a 1525 cubic inch single-cylinder motorcycle. At his workbench, he began to disassemble the carburetor, but could not concentrate enough. When dinner time came, Harry still hadn't said a word, and Evelyn began to worry. "Darling," she said, "how can I help? Do you want to talk about it?" Harry responded rudely, "Can you cancel this letter? I wish I had never read it. I feel like I'm being blackmailed through my children." Evelyn was surprised by Harry's violent reaction. She said soothingly, "That's not true. Nobody is trying to force you to do this." Harry stood up and began to pace around the room. "It is not true. You talked to Annika, Bjorn, and my ex-wife about this letter and encouraged me to read it. So what would you call it differently? Conviction, perhaps? Now I feel like I'm screwed again. I think I'll go away for a while to get my thoughts in order again." Evelyn turned pale at Harry's words. She had expected a reaction, perhaps even a strong one, but this rage was beyond anything the 3 of them had ever imagined. Harry said, "Tomorrow I will take a caravan and go to Limburg for a while. I'm going to book a campsite." The next morning, Harry found himself driving south and grumbling to himself. "It's a damn mess. Just when you finally think you can leave this woman behind, another damn rabbit comes out of her hat. And on top of that, I get the only available campsite in the area, at the same damn campground where this mess started." Around the same time, things were going crazy in Vermont. Evelyn called Annika, but she did not answer the call. Finally, Evelina grabbed Bjorn. "Hey, Evelyn, is everything okay? Something happened because you usually call Annika, not me." "Bjorn, Harry read in G's letter yesterday. It went badly, very badly. He said he felt blackmailed and didn't say another word, except see you this morning when he left with the caravan for Limburg." She cried, "Now I don't know what to do." "Oh, crap," Bjorn replied. "It wasn't what we expected. You know, I'll come after I contact Annika, and I'll tell my mother the bad news. The only thing we can do is wait and hope that Dad will cool down. Now pull yourself together and stay calm. Dad will come back to you. Don't be afraid." And yet, despite his assurances, Evelyn was very afraid. In the afternoon, Harry arrived at the campsite. He was shown a beautiful place with an endless view of the hilly landscape. He quickly set up camp and went in search of dinner. After dinner, He went on a short tour of the campsite when he noticed a familiar face next to his spot. Now, by force of circumstances, the place and the person came together, and Harry recognized the real estate agent, who was also one of the men in the company that night. Harry's heart rate was skyrocketing, and he felt a surge of adrenaline as the killing intent entered his mind. Luckily, the man walked away from him, oblivious to the danger a few meters away, and Harry headed towards his caravan, shaking with rage. There he sat motionless for a long time, thinking, before finally going to bed. The next morning, after a restless night, he got up to go into the manager's office to chat a little. When Harry began questioning the manager volunteered. "I'm really sorry. I know these people are bad news. I've heard rumors, but until I have proof, I can't deny them. There is already a CCTV camera pointed at them, but the ladies always enter their van voluntarily." "What if I manage to provoke them?" asked Harry. The manager smiled and said, "I don't know anything, as Manuel from Faulty Towers always said." Harry laughed. "Yeah, you're from Barcelona," he said, referring to Manuel's origins. "But we understand each other." Leaving the office, Harry began to plan. "Good morning, gentlemen." Harry smiled. He hoped the agent didn't recognize him. He had not shaved for several days, and the man met him more than 3 years ago. Harry looked very different these days. The man looked up. Red, inflamed eyes and dark, drooping eyelids underneath. He croaked, "What do you want?" Harry said with an innocent face. "Me? Nothing, but since we are neighbors, I came to offer coffee. Looks like you need a cup." The man looked at Harry suspiciously. "Why would you do that?" Still playing a little silly, Harry said, "Looks like you had fun yesterday, and I'm here all alone." Harry let the rest of the sentence hang between the two of them. After some thought, the man said, "Call me Abe and bring me something stronger. It's ladies' night, and we're going to have some fun." "Okay," said Harry. "What time?" "Come closer to 3, Abe replied. "My friend will come too." Harry went for a walk, and, as Abe so eloquently said, for a drink. He bought a bottle of cognac, whiskey, and a bottle of young Dutch Genever, similar to water. Harry replaced most of the Genever with water. He took a chance, but most people didn't drink Genever anyway. At 3, Harry came over with his phone in recording mode and placed it face down on the table. He was surprised to find Abe and his buddy in the company of a young woman. "Hi, I'm Bridget." Harry made sure there were CCTV cameras pointed at the area and his phone was still in recording mode on a table nearby. He said, "You know, I don't think I like it." "And what are you going to do about it?" Abe chuckled. Harry expected more bragging, but before he could react properly, Abe rushed with a knife suddenly appearing in his hands. "Evelyn." "Yes, Bjorn. What's happened?" "Dad, he's in the hospital. He was stabbed, and the police want to arrest him for violence." "What? What's happened? Is Harry okay?" "I don't know. I know he needs surgery. That's why they called me. As soon as Annika is here, we will pick you up and go to him." "Please, yes, I'll pack a bag for him." The car was quiet for a long time. Bjorn kept the car just below the limit at which one could lose his driver's license. Evelyn sobbed quietly. "I wish we had never given him this letter. That's the reason he went there in the first place," Annika said in a quiet voice. Bjorn focused on the road ahead, but couldn't help himself. Dad doesn't get into fights. With all this Krav Maga, he learned to stay away from them. I think he had to defend himself or else he would be ambushed. I saw what he was capable of. I almost feel for the other person. 2 hours later, they arrived at the hospital. They were met by a police officer. "Good evening. I'm Officer Janssens. May I ask who you are?" Introductions were made and Janssens continued. "Mr. van der Goes is no longer a suspect. Judging by the CCTV images and his phone records, it was pure self-defense. It appears he also saved a woman. 2 people attacked him without warning. I must say that Mr. Vander Goes has acquitted himself very well. These two men will very much regret taking it upon themselves." "Two?" asked Evelyn. Annika interrupted me. "How is he? Is he in danger?" Jansen said he didn't know, and they had to ask the doctor. Finally, after asking for directions several times, they arrived at the right ward. There, a nurse told them that Harry was being operated on. His situation was serious. It was believed that he would survive, but he lost a lot of blood. The fact that there were no guarantees remained unspoken, but everyone understood it. She told the anxious trio that they could wait there, or she could arrange a guest room across the street, promising that they would be called immediately as soon as Harry returned from surgery. Annika, Bjorn, and Evelyn crossed the street in the middle of the night. So the wait began. Peep, beep, beep, beep. "What is this noise?" "Shut it. Don't you know I have a headache?" Harry thought. He wanted to say something, but he couldn't move his tongue, and it seemed like his lips were sealed. He heard a deep, deep voice say, "Ah, here he comes again. Mr. Vandergoose, if you can hear me, please raise your right hand." Harry rather hesitantly complied with the request. "Okay," said the man. "Let me introduce myself before I explain some things. My name is De Ridder, Dr. De Ridder, and I'm going to help you get back on your feet. You just escaped the Grim Reaper, so you better take it easy, because for a while. First, I'll free you from the equipment and wet your mouth. Then you will see some very worried people, but I can't relax enough to calm down." When he and the nurse had finished removing the tube, the doctor opened the door and motioned for Evelyn, Annika, and Bjorn to enter. He looked at Evelyn and muttered something like "lucky" before walking away. Evelyn was in tears when she finally asked, "What happened? I should never have given you this letter." Harry smiled and croaked, "No, it cost me money, but now I have a clear answer to Ng's letter." He closed his eyes and whispered, "I'm so tired." A few seconds later, he fell asleep again. A week later, Harry was sitting at home in a chair with Ng's letter in his hands. 3 pairs of eyes were fixed on his face as he said in a sad voice, "When I first read the letter and on the way to the camp, I was inclined to give up and let Ng return to my life. The same men who participated in the destruction of our marriage were at the campsite. Once I gained some trust, they told me, not knowing who I was, that she was the one who gave them the STD, not the other way around. They also said she got drunk after they had sex, not before. I can only conclude that she had already cheated on me before I left her. However, she will not come back into my life at all. I will treat her as if she were a stranger because I don't want my children to have to choose which parent to invite, and it is my responsibility to tell her, so I beg you not to interfere. Please promise me." After 2 weeks, Harry received the green light from Dr. De Ridder to begin exercising again. He began the first weeks under the care of a physiotherapist. 6 weeks after his flight and fight, he was wondering how to handle a conversation with his ex-wife. Unable to figure out a good way to handle this, he finally decided to just improvise and see what happened. A week later, Harry waited in the same restaurant where Ng tried to ruin his budding relationship with Evelyn. Now, Evelyn and Harry were deeply in love with each other. Evelyn got rid of her insecurities during the joint consultation, and at the same time, Harry slowly got rid of his mistrust. He saw Ng enter the restaurant and was surprised to see that she had company. He stood up and waved before both women approached his desk. "Ng, I see that you have gathered the company for a private conversation." Inga wanted to cry. This was not the reception she had hoped for. She and her counselor discussed several scenarios, and this scenario was the one she feared most, one of the worst-case scenarios. Ng knew it would be difficult, so she took her consultant with her in the hope that the woman could prevent possible explosive events. "Harry, may I introduce you to my consultant? She's here to support me." "Oh, I see. Still trying to manipulate me." Harry turned to the other woman. "Should I also bring my consultant with me? You see, I needed it too after that woman was done with me. He turned to NG again. I promised you dinner, and your support is also welcome. Let's sit down. NG was on the verge, but Harry insisted on eating first and talking later. She also noticed that Harry ate little and drank wine in moderation, but seemed completely relaxed. Finally, after ordering dessert, Harry asked, Okay, NG, what do you want from me? NG almost choked on her ice cream. The consultant intervened. Sir, you are being rude. NG is trying to resolve, the difficulties between you. It does not help. Difficulties? You can't even imagine the pain she caused me. NG, you know that I was in the hospital, but do you know why? NG was still unsettled by Harry's cold, almost hostile attitude towards her and her advisor. She answered in a quiet voice, In the hospital, yes, but I don't know why. The children didn't tell me anything. Harry looked at the two women and asked, Are you wondering why? Both women nodded yes. Fine. NG, after reading your letter, I needed to do some serious soul searching. And I only had to do this because the people I love, the people I know love me, asked me to do what you asked. So I took a caravan and headed south. Arriving in the surrounding area, I began to look for a place for a tent. Coincidentally, the only empty seat was where the hell that was created especially for me came. Fate must have had a good day because there I met two men you had sex with, and I wanted revenge, so I tried to gain their trust with resounding success. They boasted about past conquests. While Harry was explaining, the blood slowly drained from NG's face. She never, not even in her worst nightmares, thought that Harry would recognize these men again. A heavy silence fell over the table. Harry looked gloomy as he said, I'll repeat your words. Can't you see that I'm in good company now? So please, get lost. With that, Harry stood up, paid the bill, and went home to be with Evelyn, the woman he loved. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.